Okay, 2 videos in 2 days, really? This isn't me. Y'all don't get used to this. But, it might be another 6 months before you see me again. Well, hey everybody. It is January the 9th, 2022. How's everybody doing from yesterday? It's the same as it was. Not much different here. Still cold, still kind of rainy, but it's 2022. What are you gonna do? This is another special episode I'm doing again today. I knew there were a couple I wanted to put out there. Yesterday's being the finish parade that I did for all of last year, and so today I'm going to go over my WIPGO board for 2022. If you did a search in YouTube for WIPGO videos, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. For those of you who stumbled upon this video and aren't familiar with cross stitch, or aren't familiar with WIPGO, or aren't familiar with how all that works, I'll kind of explain it to the best of my ability. But no, anything that I say following this statement is loosely based on my interpretation of how I'm going to do WIPGO this year. I don't know if you play WIPGO or you just participate in WIPGO. So, the basic thing that you need to know, WIPGO is a creation of Jessie Marie Does Stuff. She's here on YouTube. She's also over on Instagram. It is essentially a bingo board, only instead of the letters BINGO, it is the letters WIPGO. So basically, it's your works in progress set up on a bingo board, and numbers are called just like in bingo. Jessie calls 2 numbers on the board every month at the end of every preceding month, for the month in which you achieve those 2 goals, maybe, or however you do your board for that month. So, for example, my board is, I think, in a more traditional sense, in that I have 25 spaces on my board. The free space is still a free space for me in the middle, but the other 24 are truly works in progress that I have or had at the end of 2021 that I wanted to work on this year. Some people don't have that many whips, so they double up. They have 2 of the same on, just scattered throughout. Some people only have 1 whip that they want to work on, and they just set different goals for each of the 25 days on 1 whip. Some folks don't make them all cross stitch, or don't make any of them cross stitch. Some folks put their knitting on there, or art, or crochet, or any of the other things that they want to try to do. Some people have multiple boards. I think Michelle Garrett has one more traditional WIPGO board where it's 24 or 25 whips on one, but then she has another one that she calls KitGo, where essentially she this year has put 24 or 25 kitted projects that she's kitted up but has not started, and she's letting people in her life choose which kits she's going to start. So she didn't actually assign kits to those squares. What she assigned was people that she wanted to pick a kit from a current stack she's got. So I'm going down a whole rabbit hole here. Basically, all you need to know is it's a bingo board. Beyond that, beyond knowing that 2 numbers are called for each month, and you work on those projects on those 2 called numbers, other than that, you can make your board whatever you want it to be. People have done all kinds of things. You can make your goals whatever you want to be. You can put as much or as little repetition as you want. You can, you don't even have to follow, I mean, in the spirit of WIPGO, it would be, it would be the best thing to do would be to follow the two numbers in which they are picked in the order in which they are picked, throughout the year. However, sometimes things happen and you don't get to play those two numbers, or you don't get to stitch that month, or whatever. So the goal is not to beat yourself up if you don't do the things exactly as planned. The goal is to encourage you to work on the things that you want to work on in hopefully the time that you've given yourself to work on them. So I tried to make my goals what I thought were fairly achievable. I'll post my board here every so often throughout this video, so you'll see I kind of calculated in my head that I thought I could do about 150 stitches a day as a low number. I can do much, much more than that, but knowing that there would be some days where I'd be exhausted from work, it'd be a long day, I wouldn't get much done, that even if I didn't get 150 Monday through Friday, that I could probably make up whatever I missed on the weekends. Or like in this case of this month, I don't think I actually started working on my WIPGO this month until like the 4th. So I knew I had about 3 days worth of stitching to catch up on. But anyway, all that being said, I will put my board up from time to time. As I was saying, my calculation, my thought was, if I could achieve 150 stitches a day over 30 days, monthly average, that's about 4,500 stitches. So I knew that would be a lofty goal for me if I were to commit that much time, and I knew I wouldn't, and I knew there would be, life would get in the way. So all of my stitching goals, I think at the maximum, my goal was a certain number of stitches, I think the maximum I put on any particular project was like 3,000. Just to give me a little bit of wiggle room, and also knowing that there would be 2 projects picked, so hopefully I wouldn't have that many stitches if I ended up with 2 projects that both had a stitching goal. So, but a lot of people do like number of days, number of hours. Like some of my goals are just a page finish on certain paper patterns I've got that I know kind of what they look like, and I'll show some of those to you too. So anyways, let me stop rambling, as I always do. If you guys have watched me long enough now, this is par for the course. And welcome everybody. Happy to see you all again. I hope you're doing well. I'm kind of writing a morning YouTube live with Kaylee, so I'm still kind of all amped up and got my drink ready and ready to go. So the only other thing I will add at this point in the video is I am not going in the order on the board. So the board is numbered 1 through 25. I think 13 is the free space in the middle. I'll go ahead and pop it up once here really quick so you can kind of see. I'm not going in order numbers 1 through 25. I just know what my board numbers are. And I keep a digital copy like on my phone, iPad, whatever. So basically all of my WIPGO projects are in a bag, a big bag. And so I'm just going to pull them out and talk about them. So I'll try to reference my board as just kind of saying this is, number so-and-so, and this is number so-and-so. With the exception that, because the first 2 numbers were called for January, which are 19 and 2, I am saving those to the very end. The reason being, of course, I've already started working on them. It is the 9th after all. So what I will do is I will save those 2 projects for the end. show you my starting point when I started on them at the beginning of the month, and then I'll show you the progress I've made on them too, and they're both sitting right here kind of separate. So let's get started. Okay, so the first few that I've got on my board that I've actually got still in like either Q-snaps or scroll frames or whatever, I'm actually going to show you first. And as just an aside, I'm looking down at my WIPGO board on my phone. So if you see me glance down, that's why. It's just I just want to be able to give you correct information on my projects. And I don't know, I don't have everything else in front of me, but I'll try to remember as much as I can about what I'm stitching on, what you know, fabric floss, that kind of thing. But there may be things in here that because I'm looking in 5 different directions, I'm gonna forget stuff. So just forgive me. And if you're curious about anything, you can always ask. So so I think what I'm going to start with is, and this is actually an absolute mess, so you'll have to forgive me. And anything that I can find pictures of, I will pop pictures up here of the finished pattern, because obviously these aren't finished. But I will show you what I've got done so far, and also realize that a lot of these have been sitting around for a while, so keep in mind that what you're looking at are things that have just been sitting in a stack, languishing to be worked on, hopefully again in the future. Alright, so the first one I'm going to show you is, let's see here, it is number 8 on my board. It is the Caterpillar Cross Stitch Made to Create Sal. I actually have this as a finish on my board. I want to get this done. It was started early last year, I want to say, and it's a really cute project. I'm just stitching it on 14 count DMC, or DMC, 14 count white Aida. I haven't, I stuck with this project for quite a while. I just, you know, you get distracted by other things, as we all do. So, this is pretty much just sat. But that's where I got. It's basically, since the Sal stitch along is so long gone and over with, basically it's the word create, using artistic tools and supplies and stuff. So essentially what you're seeing is I think each section of the stitch along was another letter plus additional like accoutrement around the edges. And like this ruler, this is the edge of a ruler or a tape measure that, you know, goes all the way back around. So that's where I ended up stopping. It looks like maybe part 3, part 4, something like that. So I want to get this finished. Now that's a lot of stitches, so I'm not necessarily holding myself to a finish, but what I'm hoping is if this gets called early enough in the year that I will work on it as much as I can within that month, of course knowing that there's another project to work as well, and then just try to hopefully have that finished goal achieved by the end of 2022. So as long as I can get it done, I don't plan on finishing this within the month, but I definitely want this to be a WIPGO finish for the year. So so yeah, that's my first project. And Caterpillar, they pretty much do DMC floss as far as charted, you know, when they chart their patterns. So that's what this is. This is the called for DMC. And I did not buy the kit. A lot of their stitch alongs, they create kits, but I did, you can't really see it there because of the thread mess there, but I did buy the little made to create needle minder that they sold for the stitch along. So yeah, so that's my first one. Okay, so the next one that I'm going to show you happens to be number 24 on my board, and this is the Stachonomy Homely Houseplant Stitch Along that was also a stitch along last year. And it is also long since over. I think this was kind of back in the spring of 2021, and I've done quite a number of Alyssa's stitch alongs now, and she'll release a frame or something like that, and then she'll release little sections. So in this particular case, there is a kind of a bookshelf frame, and then a bunch of plants hanging throughout. So that's as far as I got, which was basically the first first plant that was released, and didn't get any further. And I really had high hopes of getting this one done as well, but sometimes it just doesn't happen. In this particular case, because I have so much left to do, my plans are, or my goal on the board is to get 2,000 stitches in. So I think that's based on what I mentioned at the beginning of the video, based on what I think I could achieve as a daily stitch. 2,000 stitches is about half the month. So so that's what I'm hoping to achieve with this one, is basically spend about half the month working on this, since there will always be two patterns called. And before I forget, I kind of paused the video here for a second because I realized I didn't have my journal out either. This one is being stitched on a 16 count color and cotton called Luna. So it's a real pale silvery gray kind of color. And then Alyssa Stachonomy, when she releases her stitch alongs, usually in advance of the first day or the frame release, she will give you a color chart to give you time to get all your flosses together. So this is the second Homely Houseplant stitch along that she's done. The first one she did the previous year, so in 2020, I guess, and had a certain color palette that when she released the 2021 version, she gave you the option of using the original palette, so your plants, homely houseplant stitches would match colors, or she had a separate color chart made for this one this year, so it would be different. So that's what I opted to do. But she does basically, she gives you the DMC colors, and then she tells you the number of skeins you're probably gonna, or number of yards you're probably gonna need. And in most cases, you don't ever need more than one skein to do hers. So, so yeah, that's my Homely Houseplants, my second WIPGO board piece for 2022. Okay, number 11 on my WIPGO board for 2022 is Modern Folk Embroideries Red Berries. This was a kit, sort of, that was a pattern and floss release that Evertotes in Canada sold with a combination of Jacob's chart and Leo and Roxy floss. And so there's only 2 colors in this pattern. And so I actually also at one time had bought a thread keep from Evertotes. So these are the 2 colors that that Jacob charts in this pattern. And I was going to look and see if he mentions in here what colors they are. I don't see it in here, but I want to say it's like Dark Sage and Cheeky, maybe. So I can't remember, or do I have it written down? I don't think I have it written down when I started this, but I started it on a 36 count linen, the colorway being Winter's Brew, and it's unfortunately I've decided just to go ahead and keep this on a Q-snap, which is probably not a good idea for this linen because the wrinkles will probably never come out. But that's my start. Basically just a little bit of the border. So, like I said, this is number 11. And in the month called, I hope to get 2,000 stitches done. And Jacob does a lovely job with his charts in that he gives you a lot of information, not only about if there's any historical significance to the pattern, but also his inspiration or any kind of story or backstory about it. But he also gives you all the math on it. So the entire pattern, he says, is 138 crosses wide by 114 crosses high, and has a total of 5,867 crosses. So, and he even breaks that out amongst the red and the green colors. So, essentially, if I can get 2,000 done, that'll be a little more than a third of the pattern. So that seems like a good goal to shoot for. And as always, the idea is to reach the goal, but of course, if I can, I would love to exceed that goal. So if I feel so inclined in the month in which this is called to just keep on working on it, I absolutely will. Or if I get so far along with the 2,000 stitches that I'm liking, the flow of it, or it put me in some kind of mood to keep stitching on it, of course I'll keep stitching on it. So I just want to meet that goal for the year. So that is my third WIPGO piece. All right, number 4 is another modern folk embroidery pattern by Jacob DeGraff. And this one is number 7 on my WIPGO board. This one calls for a page finish. So I'm hoping that, a lot of these, when I start them, I've learned that if I feel like I'm going to end up taking up an entire piece of fabric, usually I will start in the center, so that way I know that I've got my margins, give myself enough room on the margins on the fabric that I can. So this one, was another kit pattern and floss that was purchased by Evertote in Canada with the Leo and Roxy flosses. And I bought the pattern and the floss, and this happened to be the very first modern folk embroidery piece that I ever bought. And when it came in the mail, and Jacob posted his YouTube video about this piece, I realized I wanted to see if his digital patterns were compatible with Pattern Keeper, which they are, which is great. So in this particular case, in his video, he mentioned that this pattern was going towards, or the proceeds, the extra revenue that he was generating from this pattern was going to the COVID relief in India, because his family is from there. So so I decided I would do that. I would purchase 2 copies. So I have the paper copy, but I'm actually using Pattern Keeper to keep track of my progress on this particular stitch. So this is how much I've gotten done, and I actually got quite a bit done. And this, I think, happens to be like one of the very first samplers, Quaker style samplers that I've ever stitched, and I just absolutely love this chart. I don't know what it was about it. I mean, part of it was the saying and the personal meaning that it was for, that it meant to Jacob, but just the colors. There's something very, very pretty about those colors. So I was really, really happy. So this one I am stitching on a 16 count Aida that's Picture This Plus called Ancient. And yeah, and I really, really, really like how, and I haven't started the Plum Shadow yet, but that's the other color that'll be part of this too. So, so yeah, that one I'm very, very excited about, and I think, I don't know if I mentioned this yet already, but this one I have also as a page finish. So, I'm hoping that this one, every time I picked it up, I always enjoyed stitching on it. So I'm hoping a page finish will be that will be another goal that will incentivize me to want to keep working on this, because I know every time I picked this up last year, I just really, really, really like stitching on it. So I'm looking forward to getting further along in this pattern as well. Okay, so number 6 on my WIPGO board happens to be another stitch along that was done by Forced Embroidery this past year in 2021, and it just I think the last section was just released like right before Christmas maybe. So this is the Alice in Wonderland SAL, and there was a lot of anticipation and excitement about this particular SAL. I think Alice in Wonderland is kind of one of those books / movies that a lot of us remember growing up. So I was really excited about it. So what I opted to do was I had a large piece of tea-dyed even weave Lugana that I had bought out of a tube, like Charles Craft from like Michael's, that I'd never used for anything. I think this ended up being the very first piece that I ever started a stitch on that was on linen, just because I hadn't ever worked with it before, so I kind of wanted to see what people, why people liked it so much, and I do like it a lot. The one thing I'll say though is about this particular kind of fabric is it is very gauzy, very, very wispy, so stitching on it is very, like I have to be careful because I kind of pull rather aggressively when I'm moving my thread through the fabric, so I had to be very, very careful with this one because I realized I didn't need to pull that hard. So it was kind of making my stitches look kind of wonky because there was too much tension, one way or the other. So, so this is as far as I got. I think this is part 3, like finished part 2, didn't finish part 3. So, and I'm going to kind of move this because this is actually a much larger piece than I can show you because of the size of my scroll frame. So this was section 1 here in the center. Then I think section 2 came up across the top, and then section 3 is down here at the bottom. And as you can see, I managed to do this part of this. I think there's a little bit more here, and then hopefully I can find a full picture now that the stitch along is over. There has been an actual released picture of the full stitch. Before we were done, the only picture we got was like a blurry kind of, this is what it's going to look like kind of thing. And there were 2 versions. There was a, I don't want to call it monochromatic because that's not correct, but there was a version that was very muted, like 2 or 3 colors, like maybe it was just red and green or red, green, and gray or something like that. But I opted for the multicolored version, and what I ended up doing was when they released the color chart ahead of the SAL starting, they always have their flosses that they sell. So so they would give the flosses if you were going to use their numbers, but then they also gave the DMC. Well, this one I didn't want to, I wanted to try something different. So this was also one of the first times I ever did my own color conversion. So I actually, because by the time this was released, I had started receiving my Forbidden Fiber floss monthly. I actually opted and chose colors that I thought were really, really close to, basically by eyeballing the picture of their floss colors, I kind of just guesstimated Forbidden Fiber equivalent. So that's what I ended up doing with this. And of course I haven't gotten really far enough to see enough color in this piece. But I hope to get there. This is a very, very, very large sal. I mean, I think this sal took up almost an entire year, if not an entire year. And the releases were like every other Friday. So, my goal is to complete one section on this. Since I'm in the middle of a section, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to finish that section and then complete one more whole section. So if I'm on the middle of part 3, I'll finish part 3, and then I want to do all of part 4. So it's not a lot of stitching, because most of these first 2 or 3 I was able to keep up with. I could do like in a weekend, do a part a weekend. And I didn't start it when the sal started. I think I started shortly before the second part came out. So it was like I had a weekend, I did part 1, and then like the next week part 2 came out, and I did that in a weekend. So I kept up with it until I just got distracted. And then that's as far as I got. So yeah, again, it's another one where I'm not setting a lofty goal for myself, but I'm hoping that in achieving hopefully a very small goal, achievable goal, that I can then continue to work on it and surpass, what the goal I set for myself, but at the same time, inspire myself to keep working on it a little bit more, and maybe in another year I will be done with it. I know there are people out there, I've seen their finishes. I mean, they kept up with it, and there were even some folks that started way late, like didn't start till like part 5 or part 6, because they wanted to see kind of how it was going to play out before they made up their minds, and then played catch up really quick and stayed with it ever since. And it's absolutely amazing, some of the finishes that I've seen. So yeah, kudos to those people. So hopefully one of these days maybe I'll be in the same group if I'm lucky. Okay, number 18 on my WIPGO board is Caterpillar Cross Stitch. Another one of their, I think this may have actually been a freebie chart, but it was something that I picked for a stitching challenge that met the requirements of that challenge. And it's not a very big chart, a very big piece. So I have put on here that I hope to finish this pattern. So the name of the pattern is Wash Your Hands, and I hope I can find a finished picture of what it looks like here, because like I said, I think this is a freebie chart, so there's nothing anywhere that I could find like a full pattern kind of thing. This was just a picture of the chart. All I had was a picture of the chart to stitch. It may have actually been out of a magazine or something like that. So anyway, saying all that to say, again, they chart theirs in DMC. I think the colors that they asked for or suggested were either not colors that I had, or there was something else about it, and I can't remember exactly what the deal was, but I am stitching this on a small kind of cut of Ada that's kind of blue in color. I'm pretty sure this is a 14 count, and so I'm not really sure either where I got this from, but that's as far as I got. So you can kind of see the W-A in wash, and I think this is the H and maybe the A in hands. So I didn't get very far on it. It was just, kind of a small start. And I was trying to find, I think this hoop is actually going to fit this pattern. But because, if you're familiar with hoop stitching or Q-snap stitching, you can't get real close to the edge when you're stitching. So I'm probably going to have to move this over a little bit when I'm done. But I think this is the hoop that I'm actually going to finish it in when it's complete. I mean, as far as just, rearranging it and finishing it off. So, it only calls for 2 colors. And I think so, I can't remember off the top of my head, but the 2 colors I'm using are DMC. These are little, floss drop thingies that I made myself. So this is 159 and this is 3846. And the 3846 is what I started with on here. So, again, I hope to just get it finished. It's obviously not a very big chart. You know, it shouldn't be that difficult to achieve. Hopefully it's just something that, you know, when it's pulled that month, it'll just give me a nice little easy stitch to work on. And also, number 12, I have listed as Valentine's Smalls. So if you watched my finished parade yesterday, I pulled this out briefly because this has a bunch of little finishes on it, but there are a bunch of little smalls that I had challenged myself last year during Valentine's Day to do a bunch of Valentine's stitching for the 14 days leading up to Valentine's Day. So essentially what I'd like to do is get the rest of these smalls done that I didn't get finished last year. I know this is one, and this is one, and I think maybe there was one more I had anticipated putting on here, so if I can find it, I may go ahead and do that as well. But this is meant to give me a break, because hopefully this will be called in a month when maybe I have another bigger project that's also called, and then that way I don't have to spend a lot of labor on these. So they're just like little kind of, you know, finish them when you can. And if I run out of things to do, or if I decide I want to pick this up in February and this hasn't been called yet, and I want to keep working on this for some Valentine's stitching, I may do that too and get ahead of the game a little bit. So that would also be nice. But there are actually several other projects on here that I think I have on my WIPGO board. For instance, number 21 is Frosted Pumpkins We Go Together, and I'll try to put a picture here just to kind of show you what the finished piece would look like, because I barely got this started. I have this listed as a finish, because again, it's not a very big piece, and what I ended up doing when I was working on this last year during Valentine's Day, I kind of gridded this fabric out, because this is a really big piece of fabric. It's a 14 count Aida that the color is just called Dirty Aida. And I'm pretty sure this is a Zweigart because of the serging, the color. But the We Go Together, this is basically the one border of that. So this is where I planned on putting that on this piece of fabric. In addition, number 17 is Hands On Designs Waffle Lot, which was a pattern release that was exclusive to a subscription box last year, but I think that was this time last year. So if I had to guess, I don't know what Kathy Haberman's rules are, or practices are when it comes to releasing patterns when they're exclusive to a box or a kit or something like that. But usually designers, either it's 1 or 2 years, so this may actually become a public release this year. But I had started on it as part of my Valentine's stitching, and this is the pattern. Have I got it in here? Oh yeah, I do. I'll show you the paper pattern. So this is actually a little pillow. So there's a top and a bottom, and then there's like this little real long edge that you stitch all the way around. And I haven't quite decided what I want to do. I like the top. I like the little waffle. It's meant to look like a little waffle. But I don't know if I actually want to cut it, you know, cut the fabric up and actually stitch the pillow. I haven't quite decided yet. But that's the top. That's the top waffle. That's as far as I got. And you see, I didn't leave myself a lot of margin for if I do decide I want to stitch it. So I may not, if I decide I want to actually make the pillow, I may have to start it over again. So all I wanted to do was just finish the actual top, and that is my WIPGO. My number 17 on my WIPGO board is just to complete the top of that. And the other thing is too, is if you notice, a lot of that is negative space on a white piece of fabric. And of course I'm doing this on more of a toasted, you know, like I thought it was more of a waffle color. So I don't know how that's going to quite turn out, either, as far as, being able, those, that finish on this color. So we'll have to see. In addition to those two, Top Knot Stitcher released a pattern last year called Be My Boo, which was a little ghosty that was a little Valentine's thing. So I've got that on here as well, and that's number 23 on my board, and I hope to get that done, finished. That's what I've got on the chart for that, listed as a finish. And then I think that's it on this piece of fabric as far as all of the little stitches. As far as like this one and the Waffle Lot, I think I'm just using the called for DMCs, whatever is called for in the patterns. So I think this is my Waffle Lot group. So yeah, so I'll just keep stitching on those, but like I said, they'll just be based on the DMC called for in the patterns. Most of these pattern makers, that's what they default to or go with or provide at least a conversion for is DMC. If in the event they're using some kind of fancy floss, overdyed floss that maybe is no longer available or you can't get a hold of anymore. Okay, so number 16 on my WIPGO board happens to be a more recent sal that actually is not finished yet. So what I've opted for as my goal for this particular project is either 3 sections or 3,000 stitches, depending on how far I feel like I can get, and depending on each section of this project. Each section is not the same number of stitches, so there's also a border and stuff like that I still need to work out on as well. But this is the Cryptid Sal by the Witchy Stitcher, and this is how far I've gotten so far. And this is I was gonna say, I don't think, oh yeah, I do. It is an 18 count Ada Zweigart by XJU Design, and I think it's called Oil Green. But I am using the called for DMC. I didn't do any kind of specialty flosses or conversions or anything like that. I noticed some people are using like the Etoile or the Diamant for the black, or some of the sparkle in some of the specialty inside the cryptids. But I haven't gotten one yet that's inspired me to do that. But essentially that's as far as I've gotten, even on the border. That is literally where I stopped on the border. But yeah, as you can see, I only got 1, not even 2 done. So yeah, I do kind of want to get some work done on this project. And I think as of today, the 9th, there are only 3 cryptids left that have not been released. So it is much, much further along. I think there's 24 total, maybe. So yeah, so I'm really behind on that. And as many extra weekends as the Witchy Stitcher gave us, like off weekends around like Thanksgiving and Christmas and Halloween to play catch up, this girl did not play catch up at all. So this is another one where the time that you are given to stitch each cryptid is plenty of time, but I truly just got distracted with each of the, with other things that kept getting my attention last year, kind of as you saw with my finished parade. So I really do hope to get back to this one as well. It's another one that I had a lot of fun stitching it. And it's not a race, so as long as it takes me to finish it, I just hope that I can get some more work done, and it'll encourage me to keep working on it. So, alright, so number 22 on my WIPGO board is another Owl Forest piece I actually have 2 more Owl Forest patterns on here, I think, but these are both freebies that are on their website. This one, as far as I know, was not a SAL. It was just a freebie pattern, and it is the Autumn Cats. This one I am, I believe, using the DMC recommended, and I got quite far on this one when I was working on it. I think this was another one that maybe I had started as part of a stitching challenge, but it's also one that I just knew I really, really, really liked the pattern, so I wanted to do it and make sure that that it was framed and part of my finished stitchy collection that I've got going. Oh, and one of my little kitty cat needle minders is upside down. So anyway, this is a 14 count Zweigart Ada called Misty Blue, and that is as far as I got on my kitty cat. And of course, this will be the majority of my stitching here, will be the big cat in the center. So I was trying to get all the little stuff done around the edges, but I really like that one a lot. Again, the kitty cats are great fun. For that one, my goal is 2,000 stitches. I don't know, with some of these Owl Forests, they do tell you how many stitches total are in a pattern, but I haven't looked on that one to see, and I'm trying to remember. I think I'm just using like a digital copy of the pattern. I don't think that they're Pattern Keeper compatible because of the way they do their digital patterns, but so I'm just kind of doing a PDF and kind of like, you know, marking sections as I get it done. And then the last Owl Forest chart that's on my WIPGO board is number 20. Again, this is another 2,000 stitch goal for me, but this is an actually huge a huge pattern. This is one of their older SALs from I don't know how long ago. I don't know when they released or when they originally did this SAL. I want to say maybe even 2019, because they're definitely, or 2020 it looks like is the trademark on the copyright on the pattern, the floss sheet that I've got. But this is a huge pattern. I will post the picture. A lot of you guys have seen it. A lot of people are working on it even now. I think Chris Cross Stitch and Mikhail from Star Parade are both doing a current SAL with it. But this is the 100 Owls pattern. And this is where I am. This is another one where, because I think this will just fit on this fabric, I did a center start to make sure that I had as much room around the edges as I could. So I didn't start. This is actually the number 1 owl. This was the first released owl, and then it kind of goes up and around and over. But this is like numbers, 40 through 60 or 60 through 80 or something like that. But I wanted to do a center start to make sure that I got the center lined up as best that I could. So 2,000 stitches on this is not, it's going to put a dent, but not a very big dent. It depends on where I am in the chart. If I finish this one and then move up into here, you might see a few more owls, but some of these owls on this pattern are very, very, very big. And this one is another 14 count Ada. This one is Zweigart, that's called Pewter. And I was trying to find a color that kind of looked like the color of the fabric in the picture online. And I think it's okay. That was the other thing too, with some of the blue, I wanted to make sure still showed up. So I think I did a good job picking colors. And again, I'm just using the DMC conversion. They always do their numbered floss that they do, and then they give you the DMC alternative that's closest to what their pattern would look like. Okay, number 3 on my WIPGO board is a pattern that was part of a subscription box that Stitch Life magazine used to do. Stitch Life magazine is no more, but this was the pattern that came with some other goodies, a needle minder, which I'll show you here in a minute, the floss, and then some other theme related stuff that came with the pattern as well. But the pattern is called Need Space, and this is how far I've gotten on it. Basically, this is, they always send theirs as a digital file, so that's all I've got to work from, is just a digital pattern. So the picture that I posted is one that I think that they had on their website or whatever. But part of their boxes, I absolutely love their boxes, but part of their boxes was the fabric, which somebody dyed specifically for this this chart. So I want to say this is probably a 14 or 16 count Ada that was dyed by the whoever the person was that they got it from. You had, I think they had 3 or 4 different needle minders that were just randomly, you got a random needle minder in yours, and I can't remember which one I got with the kit, but I went back, and this was my first introduction to Nerdy Needle Minder. So I went back and got one of the other ones, one of the other options that may have been in the box that I didn't get that I liked. And then I think this is also one of theirs too. But this wasn't one that was offered as part of the subscription box at the time. So I do miss Stitch Life magazine a lot. The other thing that was part of this, which hopefully I'll be able to finish it, but I don't know, or finish with it, but I don't know how I'm going to do it, was this cut of fabric was big enough square to make a square pillow. And so they gave you a finishing fabric to do the back side of the pillow. I think even they gave you the hoop just so you could stitch it. So I haven't decided what I'm going to do with the fabric yet. And it's just like galaxy, like stars and stuff, planets maybe in it too. So I haven't quite decided. But then they also gave you all of the DMC at just as they charted it. So it really was a fun stitch, or a fun subscription box to get every month. And it's sad, but people's lives change and they can't keep up with doing subscription boxes because they're hard. So I do appreciate the 5 or 6 that I got to receive from them. They're a great company. And so yeah, this is, what did I say, number 3 on my board, and I do have this listed as a finish. This is pretty much the only stitching area that's going to be on here, and I'm tempted to leave it on the hoop and just hang it up, just as a finished piece on the hoop, but that just means I have the finishing fabric that I have to decide what to do with. So I haven't made up my mind, but it should be a pretty quick finish. It's not a very big stitch, and I am looking forward to getting that one finished. Okay, so the next one is number 4 on my WIPGO board, which is the Trans Pride Tapestry by D's 20 Stitches and Uncanny Kari. This one is a stitch along, sort of, stitch together, if you will, that was started back in June for Pride Month. And so that's when I started this, and I chose an opalescent hand-dyed by Rolanda fabric that I think I bought from her through Etsy. And I just wanted to check out her fabric just to kind of see what, several people raved about it. So this is, this does not have a color. It is just got like a number. So I think it was just 14A. But that's where I got started on basically the flowers around the border. So this is number 4 for me on my WIPGO board, and I have it listed as my goal to be either a page finish or 3,000 stitches. Unfortunately, I started in a corner, so if this is the only page I get done, plus whatever it takes to maybe reach that 3,000 stitch goal, that would be great. But it is a sparkly fabric, and I think I am using the DMC, recommended DMC, and the unicorn in the center is stitched in D5200 Diamant, which is a very pretty, you're not going to be able to see that at all, opalescent. Here, put it up against my white skin so you can see the white thread. But it is DMC Diamant, and it's the opalescent, shiny, whatever, along with the Etoile, the 725 gold, and then all the other colors are just real pretty bright. And I've seen all kinds of people talk about, converting their unicorn to different colors, or the hair, or the, stitching with different variegated threads, those kinds of things. So I think I just wanted to stick with the original design at the time, just because I liked the way it looked. And I thought my sparkly fabric, since that was kind of the deviation that I was doing, that I would stick with that one kind of sparkle added element to it, and then leave everything else as the pattern is charted. So that was my start for that one. And hopefully I will, again, that will be kind of a large goal for me. So hopefully, if I get lucky, the numbers will be paired up where I'll have some other small things, so I won't have to worry quite so much about reaching that 3,000 goal, and still getting two projects done within that month that it's called. And then number 9 is, this is a pattern by Steno Stitches. That was released, I want to say, right at the beginning of 2021. I want to say this is like very, very beginning of the year, and I don't know why that sticks in my head like that, because I don't know what, I don't think that that's right. I think, I just think that was something in my head that, I don't know, got put there by accident. So, but this is their Game of Thrones Sal, and I started this actually on May 1st, and I am stitching it on just a 32 count antique white linen, and this is where I have gotten so far. By then Game of Thrones was over, so there was no reason, or there was no Game of Thrones to watch and stitch, but it is something that I think if I decide to go back and rewatch the series, maybe I would definitely pick it up if I was so inclined, or maybe The Witcher, since The Witcher, it's not the same thing, but it's same kind of fantasy element to it, and swords and those kinds of things. So maybe this will be my Witcher stitch. But this is number 9 on my board, and I have 2,000 stitches on this one. I don't know, this is another digital pattern that I don't think was Pattern Keeper compatible for whatever reason. So yeah, I will definitely, because this is linen, and it is all 310, except for a little bit of, I've got 169 in there too. But the rest of this is all 310, and I buy the 310 pearl cotton, the balls, that's like the number 12. And so I think when I stitch this, I actually only use one thread of the 310, and it's pretty good coverage for the linen, and I do it over 2. And I remember at some point, I think I picked this back up maybe for a stitching challenge or something, and I got goofed up in here somewhere, and I had to rip not a bunch of it out, but I had to frog a bunch of it out, pull out a bunch of stitches, and go back. So I think that I would be a lot further along than I was, because to me, when I goof up something like this, that's like this sword or whatever that's across the top, blade that's across the top, when it's symmetrical, it drives me crazy, because then that means I know I have to pull it out or it's not going to look right, and I can't fudge it. I can't make it up, make it work, work around it, whatever. It's got to be the scene, you know, in my head. So, and visually, it's really, really obvious if it's not. So, so yeah, so that's number 9 on my board. And then number 14 is a frosted pumpkin stitch along, which I think this one like just ended. Like the last section was just released, because I know the picture I'm showing you is the full pattern. But frosted pumpkin, I've stitched it up, or I bought some of their smaller patterns. I really haven't stitched very many. My finishes from last year, there was one little freebie chart, but this is the only other one that I've actually done a lot with. And this is, so I am stitching this based on their, I'm going to say their kit, but that's not entirely correct, because I bought the needle minder that went with it. I bought the fabric that went with it, but I didn't buy like the full kit. Like I bought my own DMC and those kinds of things. So I want to say, if I remember correctly, this was another one. My memory is terrible and I can't freaking remember anything. So I was trying to look through my journal and see if I could find it. Because I know it's one of the very first ones I started this past year. Yeah, so the start was, I think this is March 25th. And this was one of those that they would release like every other week on like the weekend, you know, just in time for the weekend. So the only section I got done was the first section, and that was in March. So this is a picture this plus opal fabric, but this was the fabric that they recommended for the pattern, or that was suggested for the pattern. So I basically bought, like I said, a little kit. I think either the coffee cup or the little macaron was the designated needle minder, but I got both. And then all I got done was the very first the mocha, and then started over here on the little border for the second. I think this was supposed to be the second release that I never did. And then along with the kit, I say kit loosely because the floss wasn't part of it. Like it's DMC. Like I bought the DMC and flossed it up or whatever. But part of the kit was you got this cute little bag, you got the fabric, and then some of the little so like on this raspberry mocha one, the little raspberries will have beads on them. So there was a bead kit that came with it as well. And I think if I had to, well, I say this, I'm going to say if I had to guess, these are probably Mill Hills. I was going to look in here and see if I could pull out all of them, because there aren't a whole lot. Like I said, I think those are for the raspberries. And then there's some little silvery ones. And then some little bluish black gray ones. And then some little like mocha, caramel colored ones. So, but that's it. Then other than that, everything else that was part of the pattern, basically was just released every couple of weeks. And like I said, I think the last section just came out like in December or something like that. And they, like a lot of them, start out by sending you the color key and kind of a schematic and kind of what to expect and a timeline and all that kind of stuff. And then after that, all you do is you just get your, like in this case, it was a digital pattern. So every couple of weeks you got an email with your updated pattern. And this is another one that's not Pattern Keeper compatible. So I've just kind of had to make do. Actually, that's not true. I think it kind of is. Once it was, like, now that I've got the full pattern, I think maybe Pattern Keeper can convert it. But when it was in sections, it was hard for Pattern Keeper to know, you know, how to keep track of all the different sections and knowing how to piece it all together. It was a little bit difficult as far as all that goes. So, all right. So next is number 5 on my WIPGO board. And I have this listed as a border finish. So, and I kind of know why this is. This is not a very big stitch, but this is a stitch that can be complicated, and it is also a pattern in which you kind of get to choose. You don't have to pick the colors, or you don't have to stitch the colors that were stitched on the pattern. So this is another pattern by Peruvian Flair, Ana Aguayo, and this is her Lovebirds pattern. And I don't remember off the top of my head when I started this one, and the only reason why I say that is because I had bought this, had it for a while, had the pattern for a while, but I didn't know what I wanted to stitch it on. Anna's patterns are different from most in that you can kind of do whatever you want with her patterns, which are great, but it also leaves someone like me who might not be the best at just, you know, having enough color imagination or whatever to come up with something on my own. So I kind of had to sit and ruminate with it for a while and try to figure out what I wanted to do. And I still, at the time I think that I bought it, and even at the time that I started it, I still wasn't done with her Peruvian cats yet. So, so I do have this written down a little bit. I started this in June 13th. Once, I think what did it for me was I got a Stitchy box, subscription box, and I want to say this was the bird box that I got. And just so happens this is the Lovebirds pattern, right? Well, I got this beautiful, beautiful flower silk from them. And for some reason, this called to me. And I said, you know what? That would make a really good color for that Lovebirds pattern. So when I got one, but before I made sure that this is what I wanted to use, I actually reached out to Anna and asked her, hey, could you tell me, because at the time I didn't know, there are calculators out there, kids, that if you want to know how many yards of like DMC you need for 3,000 stitches in a pattern or something like that, there are calculators out there that will do it for you. And I'm not going to go into that here, and I can't even remember off the top of my head. If that interests you at all, leave me a comment down below, and I will get that information for you. But there are a couple that I have bookmarked that I have saved, because it has saved my bacon a couple of times. So, I contacted Anna, and I said, hey, could you tell me in this pattern how much thread, yardage, or meterage, in her case, if she goes by meters, how much you needed, how many skeins of, DMC or whatever you used. And I said, I think I know what I want to use for that pattern, but I only got 8 yards of it. She didn't know what it was, but I'm just telling you, it's circled on back 8 yards. And I need to know if I need to get a second hank. And she said, yes. She said, you'll probably need to in order to do what you want to do. And I was like, okay, great. So I then, before I started it, went on Stitchybox's website, that's Stitchybox, and looked to see if she had more of this in stock, and she did. So I ordered one more, so I knew I would have enough to do this pattern. So that's what I did. And then also in that box, I think, was this Gloriana silk that's like gold colored that I thought would be really pretty with it. Or I had a gold from Forbidden Fiber Company that I might use instead. I couldn't quite decide, and I'll show you why. Because at some point also, had to have been by June 13th apparently, I got, and I think this is really what did it for me, I got this really pretty, it's stiff as a board, dyed Ada, which is a 14 count, but the color is called Adobe. And this was part of one of the last Stitch Life magazine subscription boxes that they did. And I just fell in love with it. Well, in addition to, I will show you as part of that box, there's this really pretty needle minder. That's meant to look like agate, but I think it's just like acrylic, poured acrylic, but it's meant to look like agate. Just really, really pretty. So that is my start with my stitchy silk. Now I have to be very, very careful, and this is why I was debating about the Gloriana silk versus the just the Forbidden Fiber Company, which is just a cotton floss, because this is so stiff and so scratchy. That silk, I have to be so careful when I'm pulling it through, but those stitches, that variegated floss is just absolutely gorgeous. So this one to me is one that I just have to be truly, truly careful with. I hope the month in which it's called, you know, I have the patience and the time to really spend on this, but my goal is just to get that border finished. Not necessarily the birds on the inside, but just the border. And I hope that's doable, and I hope now that I've got the second skein of the stitchy silk, I can get that done. So that's another one that just really, really, I'm always just so excited when I get to work on one of Anna's projects. Okay, number 15 on my WIPGO board is a design that I actually have a paper pattern for. This is Mojo Stitches. This is Take Wing, which is the number 2 pattern in the Bushland Quaker series. This I actually started as part of the Quaker Quaker Zoom Stitch Along, whatever you want to call it, that Michelle Garrett of Bendy Stitchy was doing. That Quaker Zoom was originally meant for the Halloween Quaker by Leela's Studio, and then when Michelle got hers done, she kind of opened it up to anyone who was stitching any kind of Quaker, and because this was birds, I absolutely loved it. So this one I ended up starting on the top corner, and it just so happened that about the time I got a Fortnite fabric, one of the first subscription fabrics that I got from them, which was one of their dynamic duos. This one was called Thelma and Louise. It's a real pretty but very, very light pale kind of pink and blue, and so I started up in the top left corner there. And I think, if I remember correctly, so Mojo Stitches is out of Australia, and so they chart their some of their, or a lot of their patterns with cottage garden threads, which is I think also out of Australia. But they give a DMC conversion as well as an overdyed conversion if you don't have the cottage garden threads. So that's what I went with the DMC. And so far it's just been absolutely fabulous. I think in some ways some of these colors are a little more vibrant. Some of the yellows and pinks up here in this first one, that what it looks like on the picture, but I know a lot of times these pictures also are taken, don't come out as vibrantly as you know, the actual stitch if you saw it in person. So that is what I've been working on for that one. So in this case, so the yeah, I think I showed you the Fortnite Fabrics. This is 16 count Aida, and I have my goal as 2,000 stitches. And because this is a paper pattern, I don't know if all they put on here is the total design width and height, so I know that's not the actual number of stitches, so I will probably have to do some kind of just keeping track of my count as I'm working on it. Is probably going to be the only way I'm going to keep track of my 2,000 stitches. And I showed you those threads or whatever, but here are some more in a little bendy flip that I have kitted up as well. Okay, I think we are down to the final 4 left on my board, maybe 4 or 5. The next one I've got in my pile here is number 25 on my board, which is Ink Circles 3 Little Kittens. And this is another paper pattern I've got. This is number 25 on my board. I have it listed as a page finish. This is another one because this is a Quaker style pattern that I think the second Quaker Zoom meeting that I had, I didn't want to work on Take Wing. I wanted to do something different, and I just bought this. So this is what I thought I might do instead. I don't have very much done on it so far, but I have a little bit, and I will show you here. All I've got so far is just the little corner there with the tree, and then the clothesline with the chicken, a couple of chickens there. This one, I decided, this is when I started getting kind of creative, and I decided that I think Ink Circles charted all this in Classic Color Works, and they also give the DMC conversions, but I started to realize sometimes that the DMC and the, if you look, I don't know if you can tell on this one, yeah, you can a little bit. See, like this cat here is it's got a little variegation to it. If I stitch this in DMC, you would lose that because DMC is just, you know, just a tonal, I mean, straight up. Flower, same thing. See how there's slight variegation in those petals. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to, because I have quite a bit of Leo and Roxy now, I am going to chart up or convert this to Leo and Roxy. So those were the colors I chose. And again, this is based solely off of the picture and the colors as I perceive them. So now a couple of these aren't going to be exact, like the gold is obviously a little more orange, and I need to go back because I've gotten some more Leo and Roxy since. I probably need to go back through and see if there's any other colors that I might opt for instead if I haven't already started on it. But essentially that's what I wanted to do. So yeah, so when I started this one, I decided I was going to convert it, and I'll kind of show you because, for instance, what is this one green? Sage. It's got some variegation to it. You probably can't see it very well there, but it's not, or in the leaves, how they're just slightly different. And that's what I wanted to see on this pattern, was just something that wasn't DMC, just straight up just green or just blue or just gold, you know. I wanted a little bit of variegation. So I am stitching this on this is the Bestitch Me July neutral fabric. So I get the 16 count Aida, and this is called Scroll. So that is what I am stitching it on. And another little Nerdy Needleminder. And this, I follow them on Instagram, but that's Ink Thread and Fire Company, I think. They make needle minders. They make they've been sewing a lot of face masks here lately, so you can see they'll post that on Instagram from time to time. I absolutely love it. There's another, I may have already shown it with an earlier pattern, but a little green cat paw print that I also got from them as well. So absolutely love that little origami cat needle minder. Okay, so the next one is actually number 1 on my WIPGO board. This just happened to be at the bottom of the pile, just because of the order in which I pulled it out of my big huge bag that I was keeping all of these in. This is by Forbidden Fiber Company. This is their one of their boxes, specialty boxes, theme boxes that they sell that are just cross stitch, and they sell them as kits, themed kits. And this particular one I actually ended up buying because Forbidden Fiber also does yarn, as well as they're just now getting into cross stitch just in this past year. I actually bought a yarn themed kit similar to or at the same time as the cross stitch kit, and this is one of the first kits that they ever did, but I was so freaking excited. This is Mandalorian themed, and Leanne of Forbidden Fiber Company, basically in the kit you get fabric that's dyed by her, along with all of the threads, over-dyed threads that are dyed by her. Again, keep in mind, she started as a yarn company, so she's familiar with the dyeing process. So she just buys the cotton floss and over-dyes it, you know, and like this is a variegated floss that she's good at dyeing yarn, so she's good at dyeing over-dyed floss. I started this in May. I want to say that was the deal. So May the 4th, of course, if you're a Star Wars person like I am, May the 4th be with you. May the 4th is kind of the unofficial Star Wars day. If you're a true Star Wars person, you know that that's not the day. But anyway, so in the kit you get the floss, the fabric, a needle minder, and then a bunch of other themed goodies. So in this particular kit, I'll show you, she sent this little, not this one, but this little key fob. The frogs, if you watch The Mandalorian, the frogs are significant because Grogu ends up eating a bunch of baby frogs, little tadpole, or frog eggs. This, not the bag, the project bag I actually made for this project myself, but this vinyl sticker, Grogu for President. I ended up getting one in my cross-stitch box and one in my yarn box, so I decided to put this one on my project bag. So that came with it. There were, I think, some gummy frogs, like the candies, which I absolutely love, and then those got eaten like right away. And then there was some like lip balm or hand sanitizer or something like that. So there were a bunch of little goodies. Sometimes she'll put, like I said, food in there, you know, those kinds of things. It just depends on what the theme of her box is. So the fabric she also dyes herself was called Tumbleweed. So this is an 18 or 14 count, 1/8 of a yard that came with the kit. And then, of course, all of her dyed, cotton over-dyed flosses that match the pattern. Her patterns, while you do get paper copies, when this came out, she sent us or asked us if we'd like a digital copy as well, and I got one, and it does work. Her patterns work in Pattern Keeper. So if you're ever curious about that, ask her. I don't know that they're always released as digital copies, but a lot of them are, or she will send you a digital copy once once you've received your kit. But yeah, they do work in Pattern Keeper, so I am actually going to be able to keep track of stitches on this. But in this particular case, I'm looking for a page finish. And I can't remember, so the total stitch count, or the total size of the piece, is 150 wide by 105 tall. But obviously there's a lot of negative space in there. So a page finish I think is actually not that difficult to do. And this is where I'm at on it. Is I finished those words at the bottom. Now I'm working on Mandalorian. So I don't know, in looking at the Pattern Keeper, you can't always tell where the pages are, but there are only like 2 pages to this pattern. So if I keep going, it would basically be the rest of it basically cuts off like right there. So it's basically the, Grogu from the A, over towards the beginning of the word. So I might get a page finish on it. I'd like to. I mean, that's actually a lot more stitching than you realize, because that's full coverage. But hopefully we'll see how far we can get. I was trying to think, besides the fabric, I think this was our needle minder that she sent. And then, yeah, that is pretty much everything for that kit. I was trying to think if there's anything else unique. This is a Nerdy Needle Minder. This is too. This is, I don't know if you could tell, what that's Darth Vader head. So, and I've got several more of the Nerdy Needle Minder, the movie poster, Star Trek movie posters on just my project bags. So, so yeah, so that is that one. The other one that I will talk about, I am not going to pick it up. Again, I picked it up yesterday. These are my Quirky Quakers. So I have them listed as number 10 on my WIPGO board. The ones that I have finished, the lovebirds, the fox, and then the fishbone. Over here, it's covered up over here, but this is the Yeti. Right next to it is Sasquatch. And then down here I started the unicorn, and then started it over again over here because I wasn't going to have enough room, and then I miscounted. So on my WIPGO board, it is number 10, and I have it listed as a start and finish or a finish. So I was talking yesterday during my finishes parade from 2021, and I think what I've decided I'm going to do is, because they are really quick, like I can do one like in a weekend. I could do one in a day if I just sat down, like got going first thing in the morning and stitched just all day, but that never happens because you have laundry and you have chores and you have bathroom breaks and you have errands to run and all that kind of stuff. So usually in a weekend I can get one done. So I think what I've decided is, this says a start and finish or a finish. I think I am going to finish the unicorn. I've got to pick out, frog back some stuff because I I was off a stitch. And they're kind of symmetrical in their border. So I've got to fix that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to frog and finish the unicorn, and then probably just go ahead and do the other mythical creature, which is Nessie, and I'll put a picture. I mean, hopefully I've got a picture up showing you guys those. If not, there's the puffin, there's the hedgehog. I bought the penguin from her through Etsy, and got the little bendy flip with it. I also bought, the pattern's put away somewhere, but I also bought her seahorse one on Etsy. So I've got a bunch that I can choose from, but I probably will go ahead and finish the mythical creatures since I'm halfway through them anyway. That's probably going to be my plan for that one. So that is that. Okay, before we get to our final two that I have here, keep in mind these last two that are here are my current, the numbers that were called for January, which are 19 and 2. So before I get to that, I just want to talk about briefly the free space. Everybody does something different with the free space. It's kind of the 25th square on the board. Some people choose to put a 25th, whip or pattern or thing on it. Some people choose to use it as literally a free space. Usually, though, what happens is because 2 numbers get called every month, there are 12 months in the year, so the math means that 24 numbers are called. When 13 is called, Jessie always calls another number, a third number that month, because the free space is truly meant to be just a free space. Like in bingo, it's just automatically marked. It's a freebie. Everybody starts with 1. So last year, for instance, 13 got called in the month of January. It got called right up front. So the rest of the year was pretty much 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with that free space yet. I haven't decided if I want to use it to work on something. I haven't decided if I want to use it to start something new that is in my huge pile of things that I could start. But it didn't get called this month. So we'll just have to see. It'll also depend on how late in the year it gets called. There's a chance, in my mind, that if it gets called later in the year, I'm just literally going to use it as a free space because I may need to catch up on some other goal that I haven't achieved yet, earlier in the year that got called that I didn't get done. So, like I said, that's just a wait and see free space. But for me right now, it's still going to just stay just that. It's just going to stay a free space. So we have 2 left, guys. These are the 2 numbers that were called in on the 27th of December, and I think actually she called them on the 26th. She called them a day early, but the 27th of every month, at the end of every month, she calls the 2 numbers for the next month. So number 2 and number 19 were called, and I'm going to start with 19 first, just because of the way they're stacked here. 19 is my final modern folk embroidery pattern that I had on my WIPGO, which this is Ruskin's Penguins. This is another one sold by Evertote as a kit, where you got the pattern and you got the floss. And as of late, it seems more and more Caroline is also working with Leo and Roxy now that Carrie is getting better at dyeing fabric and actually including fabric with those kits too, which means the kits are a bit more expensive, but you can still, I think, on occasion buy the kits with just the floss and the pattern. And even in some cases, because Evertotes is a project bag company, you can buy like these really nice kits where you get one of Caroline's bags, which I've got a couple of them. They're absolutely fantastic. You get the floss, you get maybe like a needle minder or something, and you get fabric and the whole 9 yards. So this was still early on, before they were getting that advanced, but this is my number 19 that was called. I have this listed as a page finish. So because I've saved these 2 for the end, the reason being I have actually started on both of these. So I wanted to, in addition to showing you the pattern and showing you my work, I wanted to pop up here of a picture of where I left off, because what I'm about to show you is what I have done since then. So I am working, so I had a penguin and I had this star, and I had a couple of these crosses done, these little crosses done, and a couple more down here. And when I started working on this, I had these 2 done, and then I had these 2 or 3 up here. And when I started working on this, I realized these single crosses, while they're great, on the fabric that I chose, doesn't I shouldn't say doesn't show up, but it does like get lost in the fabric. And the reason is because my fabric that I chose is an opalescent fabric. And I was trying to see if I have it on here. Oh, no I don't. I actually have it still on the back. So this was a Picture This Plus fabric that I think was actually offered by Frosted Pumpkin for one of their patterns, but I thought it was really pretty, so I wanted it. But I didn't stitch a Frosted Pumpkin on it. So it's a 14 count Aida Picture This Plus opalescent. Oh, sorry, it's not a 14 count Aida. This is a 28 count casual linen, opalescent casual linen. That is a Picture This Plus called Crystal Ariel. And this is my current. So yeah, you guys can see the sparkly. So here's the deal. These are the two crosses, the actual stitched snowflakes I did. These three are beads. And that's when I hadn't stitched any of this yet. That was my start. That's where I was starting with WIPGO. And I had kind of put it out there on Instagram that I was thinking all of these single crosses, I was going to stitch beads instead. Because I think I just kind of like it. Now, it may raise an issue when it comes time for finishing. Especially because, like with Jacobs, I really kind of think I want them framed and possibly behind glass. And I don't know if that's going to create a problem or not. But since then, I have stitched quite a bit of the border. And I just realized how crooked that is. It's not straight on this Q-snap, which is crazy. But I think that may be the nature of the linen itself. But I absolutely love the sparkly fabric. I thought it was really nice because it was, it's real pale blue. It reminded me of like when you see pictures of the glaciers floating in the Antarctic. The polar bears will land on them or whatever. But the ice tends to have a pale blue color to it. So yeah, so that's as much as I've gotten done so far. And of course, like I said, that is this bottom corner. Basically, the pattern is roughly 4 pages. So basically, I'm working on this bottom corner down here. So we'll see how far I get. I definitely stitched over past this. Again, this was another one where I think it's just going to fit on the fabric. So I did a center start and then just kind of worked my way, got the wording done. But that's my hope, is just to get that bottom page done, bottom corner. And so I've gotten pretty far on it. And it's only 2 colors, which is great because that means it's just real speedy, just speeding right along, stitching right along, because you don't have 1,000 color changes or anything like that. It goes pretty quickly as far as just getting a certain number of stitches. The only downside is the upside is I'm going for a page finish, so I'll know when I'm done with the page based on the way the page looks. The downside is I don't know, I'm not counting, so I don't know truly how many number, what the number of stitches is, but that's not my goal, so it's not important. And then finally, I have number 2, which was also called at the end of December for the month of January. And this is a stitch that I started in June for a stitching challenge, primarily because there were multiple prompts within that challenge that this pattern met those prompts. So this is Sleepy Hollow by Tiny Modernist. I started this, that challenge went on during June, so that's when I got started on this, and I pretty much hadn't picked it up since. So I made this one of my WIPGO. I mean, this is, number 2 on my board because I knew I had it and I knew knew I needed to work on it. It is a big piece. So this is the finished. I'm going to do the finished piece like this. It was also, though, designed, and I think this may have been a stitch along at one time for Modern or Tiny Modernist, but each section, so like this is the printout for part 4, which is the Headless Horseman down here at the bottom. But you could, she had finishing instructions where you could do each one as a drum by itself, and then you had like these little top motifs that you could also stitch to make the drums. Well, I'm not doing that. I'm just doing it as the big piece like this. I'll go back and look at those tops. I haven't really looked at it very closely to see. The big finish, the big piece is, most of it I think is Pattern Keeper compatible, but if you're going to do it like this, you know, select this image by itself, this is compatible. And this is something that I am keeping track of stitches, because my goal is 2,000 stitches on this, which isn't a lot. Surprisingly, I've already done over 1,000, or pretty close to 1,000. I did not start WIPGO stitching until Tuesday the 4th. So 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, today's the 9th. And each one of those days I've done on average about 200 stitches. So yeah, I'm well over 1,000 already. But I hope, you know, I'm gonna go as far as I can. I was trying to play catch up because I missed those first 3 days, so now I'm kind of back on, my math works out to where I've averaged my daily average that I kind of calculated at the beginning to do. So this is another one. I think in her pattern, she charts this in DMC, and then maybe some overdyed flosses? I don't know, but I know the DMC is there, because I'm going to put this picture up. I didn't do just a whole lot. I did that whole top border. Again, I think I started top left. I think the fabric that I have is more than big enough, so I just did like a, you know, 1.5 or 2 inch margin and did top left start. So I started that whole border across the top. You know, basically started here and stitched all the way across the top, and then down, and then came back down. And this section is basically where I am on my Q-snap. So because I didn't want to do DMC, and I didn't have any of the overdyed flosses, but I did have a ton, or any of the overdyed that might have been recommended. I did have a ton of my Forbidden Fiber. That's, again, what I did was another conversion. So, if I hadn't posted it already, here's where I was when I started. Didn't get very far. Got most of the words, like I said, the border at the top, most of the words done, and that was pretty much it. And I'm going to try to move my grime guard out of the way, but you kind of know what the top looks like. But in the last, oh, and a little bit of that cat and the ghost. But in the last 6 days, I have gotten quite a bit done. I'm trying to move stuff out of the way so you can see everything. So, ta-da! So this, okay, so the black is 310. I'm sticking with my pearl cotton ball. Here, I'll show you. Since I've been stitching on this one, I'll show you. Because this one, I've still got quite a bit left, but this thing has definitely wound down. And then the reason why I say I think maybe she did just do DMC on this, I'm using the Ecru number 12 pearl cotton, but I think the actual number for these charted ones is actually 712, which I'm trying to think, I think is a little bit lighter towards white, you know, paler, than ecru, but I don't know why that stitch is bothering me, but it is. That one just kind of like poking out right there below his mouth. Anyway, focus. But so everything I've done so far has been 310 and ecru, except for the border. The border is actually this kind of greeny gray, bluey gray kind of color, and I'm using this Forbidden Fiber Company Caviar. So other than that, you know, those three colors, that's all I've stitched so far. There's a lot of color in it. I mean, surprisingly, I mean, a lot of green, a lot of that yellow, a little purple, but for the most part, it's the color that I'm using, the Caviar, the 310, and then the ecru. The other thing though that I did was the greens. I actually have now gotten more greens since I started this from Forbidden Fiber Company. I actually had a couple of Leo and Roxy's pulled, but I put them back because I have more green now that I can pull from. I have a couple of different purples that I'm trying to decide which one I want to use. And these are actually variegated that I fussy cut. There's that one. And then there's this one. I mean, they're practically the same, but they're slightly different. One of them's, and this purple's got a little more blue in it. The other one is the yellow and the orange, which I can't quite decide what I'm going to do. I've got a few more yellows now. I think I may go back and look and see what I've got, but that was the original yellow I was going to use, but I don't think it's enough for all the yellow in that chart. So then I thought I may have to go with like an orange for like some of the pumpkins or whatever. There's like a you can't really tell on here, but they're actually kind of like stripy. Yeah, you can kind of tell a little bit they're stripy. So I wasn't really sure. Okay, so I'm going to stripe with orange and yellow. But some of that I think is variegated flosses. So I was trying to figure out what I was going to do with that. But like I said, now that I've got more colors to pick from, I may go back and see if I can find something that I can match up, you know, that I have more of that'll work for this pattern. So, other than that, the only other thing I didn't mention was my fabric, which is a 16 count, another Be Stitch Me Neptune. And I think, me personally, this one's a little bit, got a little more white to it, but I think it's a really good alternative. I mean, I think I did really good as far as fabric color matching, kind of. So I'm really, really happy. And that is everything, guys. Thanks again for hanging in there. Oh my God, I'm looking at the time just on this one alone. I know this one ran a little bit longer than the other. So I do these like in pieces so I can take a break, put things away, and I don't have a big, huge pile of mess in front of me. I don't think the other segments were this long, but this may be another long one, guys. So I'm really sorry. If this is your first one watching this year, you hadn't seen my other one yet, Happy New Year. And always be kind to each other. And I will hopefully not wait another 6 months to fill you in on all my progress. So take care, guys. Bye.